It's a pay-per-view week for the UFC, and you know what that means. The betting show is back in your life. O'Neill, Theo Lander, we're here to take you all through the best bets, in our opinion, for UFC 299 card, and what a card it is indeed. We'll get into that in just a moment. Before we get into the betting side of things, we will take a look back at the previous card, take a look at some of our bets from that and how we did. But before we get into that, I just want to remind everybody we're doing this for a bit of fun. This is a bit of crack, bit of fun, whatever you want to call it. We ain't talking units. We ain't getting too serious here. We're just going to share our humble opinion on these fights, where some money can be won, where some money can be lost. We've won some, we've lost some already on the betting show. This is the third edition. If you haven't seen it already, like I said, we will go through and pick 5 bets apiece and 1 parlay for the team, which we'll work through the card over the next 25-30 minutes or so. Theo, how are we doing, son? You're looking forward to this one?
I'm looking forward to it. I've had this pay-per-view circled on my calendar since it was announced. It's going to be a great weekend of fights, and there's a lot of money to be won here. I love the way the board looks. We had a great time last time out, and it's going to be a pleasure to get into it with you as always.
Let's fucking do it. First of all, let's go back. UFC 298. We have some bets from my card, some bets from your card, and the parlay bet as well. If you don't mind, take us through mine, take us through yours, take us through the parlay. How did we do?
Well, I mean, overall, it was a pretty good night for us. I went 5-0, which was a big improvement from my 1-4 performance in the first month. Overall, I am now 6-4 on the season. Yourself, you had another 2-3 week just on the singles. You were reaching for the stars a little bit, so I do commend your bravery. Overall, you are now 4-6, and the parlay cashed. We are now 1-1 with the parlay.
What was it? Speak to your success, Theo. What did you bet on? What did you get up on those cards?
Oh man, I had Ian Gary to win. I felt like that was a pretty easy one. The value wasn't too high. I think the biggest one for me was Topuria at plus money in the main event. I always thought that he was going to be the guy to beat Volkanovski before the Makhachev knockout, and so after that, I was just even more confident in it. So that was a pretty good one there as well. I thought Whitaker Costa would go to the distance. It did. I also had on that card a victory for Miranda Maverick against a fighter on a 3-fight losing streak. I forget her name already, but that's fine. And yeah, we had a pretty good crowd to round it out, and our parlay was a pretty simple one as well. This month, I should say, we have already doubled the odds on what our parlay is going to be. Don't want to spoil it for you just yet, but we have some pretty good stuff in store.
Big bucks ahead. Let's get into it, Theo. Main event: Sean O'Malley, Marlon Vera. The betting odds straight up here: Sean O'Malley minus 275, Marlon Vera plus 225. That's your straight bets for here. Before we get into actual picks that we have on this card, Theo, talk to me about this fight and what you're feeling about this fight before we get into where the money can be won and where the money can be lost on this.
Yeah, it's a fascinating main event that we have here. The styles clash up really well on this one. Obviously, there's the huge backstory with their first fight, the way that it ended with the drop foot, and all the controversy that surrounded that. The Sugar State Athletic Commission was involved, and all of these sorts of things. I think, honestly, though, that a lot of the analysis on this main event is really overstated. I think people are giving Sean O'Malley almost too much credit for his striking prowess. Not to say he's not one of the best strikers in the UFC, but I think the issue is that they're forgetting that Chito Vera presents these unique challenges for him that I don't think it's going to be as easy as some people think it would be for O'Malley. I think Sean O'Malley's a guy who's never been to the 4th round in the UFC when Chito's done a couple of main events now. Chito also has the ability to mix it up more than O'Malley would with takedowns and the grappling threat as well. So, if this was kickboxing, if this was Muay Thai, if this was just a striking mixed martial art, I'd feel so comfortable with Sean O'Malley. I'm still feeling pretty good about him, but I don't think this fight is as one-sided as people are predicting it is. And I'm excited to get our action in on it.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I kind of feel the same as well. Like, originally when we do the picks on SevereMMA, my original pick was actually Sean O'Malley to win via 3rd round KO. I've changed that to decision now because I think what a lot of people will see in this, and it's a lot of question that has been around Sean O'Malley, really, is the durability of Sean O'Malley. But we know that Chito Vera is durable. I think the durability of Sean O'Malley might be a little bit overblown coming into this. I think we're going to see a much more polished performance. It's a risky fight for him in certain terms, and I'm wondering, I feel if the knockout doesn't come early for Sean O'Malley, that I don't think it is going to come, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to get the win. Are you expecting this to be like a straight shootout on the feet, Theo? Like you kind of mentioned, maybe do you expect Chito maybe to come in and look to take it down and try make things difficult for O'Malley?
Well, I think at least in the early goings, it's going to look a lot like the first round of the Aljamain Sterling Sean O'Malley title fight in Boston last summer. I think that when you look at the guys that Sean O'Malley's fought, a lot of the criticism was that he was fighting really guys who weren't tough competition, guys maybe that shouldn't have been in there with him, and the UFC was just trying to push him, and that's fine. But when he stepped up finally, when he fought Pedro Munoz, remember how inactive that first round and a half was for him? There was very little to score in that fight. Petr Yan kind of brought it out of him because, the pressure just sort of got to him. He kind of forces O'Malley to engage with him. In the Aljamain Sterling fight, you could see him backing up the whole time. He didn't want to come forward and put pressure on Aljamain. Now, obviously, that's because of the takedown threat. But regardless, I think the biggest thing that we're forgetting here is that Sean O'Malley isn't just going to come forward and blitz him. And if you're looking on the other side, Chito Vera is another guy who's a historically very slow starter. So I think at least in the early goings here, the exchanges are going to be very limited. I think both guys are going to pick their spots to engage, and no one's going to get too reckless. Now, as the fight progresses, if Sean or Chito feels that they're falling behind a little bit, then they're going to start taking more risks, in my opinion. But regardless, I don't think there's going to be a lot of action early. But if there is, I think it absolutely favors O'Malley.
Yeah, big time. That's a very, very solid assessment too. And you know what? As we were kind of talking about this fight on the preview show, on the Severe Setup this week, that's kind of something that we were looking at as well. Is that I kind of labeled it as a somewhat of a Mexican standoff, if you want to call it that way, maybe a US/Ecuadorian standoff that we could see where there's a lot of shit talk. There's a lot of downplaying of opponents, but I can guarantee you both of these men will respect each other when they do go in there. And the result of that may be this tit for tat stand up battle. Where's your money at, Theo?
Man, I mean, I know I've been trying to tell you guys how much closer this fight's going to be. I know I've been trying to portray that for you, but I'm still going to go with the champion O'Malley to retain in this one, to redeem that loss against Chito Vera. I think if you just look at the first fight and the exchanges that they had, although they are very limited, and that's several years ago, and both guys are way better now, the speed difference is just it baffles me how much faster Sean O'Malley is. He beats him to the punch in every single exchange almost in that fight. He doesn't get hit in the face once before he goes to the ground. Like, I just don't see how Chito could solve that issue on the feet. I think where he's going to find success in this fight is mixing it up, is threatening with the takedowns, and all of a sudden the hands are dropping more, and O'Malley's more open for shots that he wouldn't be prior. I said in my staff predictions for the Severe site, just not attached to this show particularly, that I picked O'Malley to win by KO in the first round. I think that's kind of what he needs to win this fight, to be honest with you. A finish now the first, second, maybe early in the third round. Because like we said, Chito Vera is so durable. He has been to the late rounds of a fight before where O'Malley hasn't. And I do agree with you that a lot of the worries of O'Malley's durability are overblown. But if you're going, stat for stat with Chito Vera in the toughness department, there's not a lot of guys who can compete with him there. So if it's not O'Malley early, it's going to get ugly for him, in my opinion.
For sure. And do you have a bet on this fight?
Yes, I'm picking O'Malley money line. It's around minus 280 as it stands right now. I think this line is going to move a lot the closer we get to fight night, because a lot of people, O'Malley has a kind of cult-like following. So the more and more money that gets put on him, they're going to move that line even further back. So if you're in this with us and you want to bet O'Malley, I'd recommend doing so immediately.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you with that first bet. Sean O'Malley I see him on Bet365 here, minus 275 for that. You mentioned the first round knockout. If anyone is interested in that, plus 800 on Sean O'Malley to get the first round knockout. That is spicy enough. Sean O'Malley straight up on points. If you're, I'm thinking, it might be a longer fight. Plus 110 for points, and you get some damn good odds for Sean O'Malley to win in rounds 2 to 5 also. two Sean O'Malley picks on this one myself. I mean, I can't really add too much to what way you broke down the fight. I thought you broke it down very well. I'm agreeing with you. It's a one that we really just don't know what's going to happen. I think, for me, it's either going to be O'Malley, O'Malley early, or my O'Malley by decision, or I can only see Chito Vera winning a decision, making it tough for O'Malley. I think if you're Chito Vera here, you've got to win at least one of the first 3 rounds if you're going to give, obviously, if you're going to give yourself a fighting chance. But, if he takes one of the first 3 rounds, this is going to be super interesting when it goes into the championship round. So, two Sean O'Malley bets, two bets at -275. That kicks us off for the main event and where we have money on. Co-main event time, Dustin Poirier, Benoit Saint Denis. We both have some, or do I have money on this? I can't remember, but I know for sure you definitely have money on this. Yeah, we were both similar enough on the first two. Let's talk about it, Theo. The old dog and Dustin Poirier comes in against the young, hungry lion and Benoit Saint Denis. What are you thinking heading into this one?
Man, momentum is a massive, massive thing at the highest level of MMA. There's guys where, I think if you were to ask a regular UFC fan, prime for prime, Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis, who wins? I don't think anyone's picking Benoit Saint Denis in that matchup. I think anyone going on Benoit's side in this one is kind of, wagering on the side that maybe Dustin Poirier isn't the same guy after the Justin Gaethje knockout and the stretches of inactivity he's had at this point in his career. But I would just say to that man, like, Benoit Saint Denis, and credit to him, you can only fight who they give you, right? He just hasn't fought the same caliber of guys, even in the last couple of years, as Dustin Poirier has. And Dustin Poirier is also a proven commodity when it proves to, going to the championship rounds, much like the main event that we were just talking about here, when it comes to, fighting guys who thrive in the chaos. Joe Rogan has a great quote that I've seen flown around this week. When the bullets are flying, give me Dustin Poirier. I'm more confident in Dustin Poirier in a dogfight than anyone else in the UFC. And that's the type of fight that Benoit Saint Denis likes to bring. And you're giving me Dustin Poirier at plus odds. I had to take it. I had to.
Absolutely. Like, I think is another good assessment as well. It's that, look, there's always going to be a fear about the chin of Dustin Poirier after he went out, but he took a colossal head kick from Justin Gaethje, a shot that he was excellently set up for. Will Benoit Saint Denis try and set him up? He has the capabilities perhaps of doing that, but he also has a kind of more of a capability, like you said, to get drawn into a war, get drawn into a dogfight. And you look back even at that Matt Favola win, before he clipped him, he's running and his arms are winging and he's not protecting his chin at all. And, he got Matt Favola moving on the back foot, but I think Dustin Poirier is just going to stand his ground in that position and get off his jab. And he's got some nice tight hooks. He's got some lovely slick boxing. If they get into a war and that war is fought in the pocket, for me, it's Dustin Poirier all day. But I think the big asterisk on this is, how is he after that Justin Gaethje knockout? How much has it affected him? How much will it affect his fighting style? Also flirting with the idea of retirement. The writing is somewhat on the wall for him, but I don't think it's his time yet. And I'm big on Dustin Poirier in this fight as well. I think his price is excellent. And I'll maybe go first. I mean, I've gone for Dustin Poirier straight up here, Theo, to get the win. He is priced at a plus 150. He's actually, since we've put in that bet, he's gone out to 170 on Bet365. So his price is a rising. So, I mean, if you want to hold out till closer to the fight, you might get some better odds there. Maybe they'll award you the best odds wherever you're betting. But Bet365 currently has him at plus 170. That's gone up since in the last couple of hours since we originally put it down on our graphic. So for me, Dustin Poirier straight up here is a damn good price. But it could be his time, but we won't know. It's definitely worth a few quid on him at plus money. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going the same exact way as you. And, of all the things I said earlier, I just want to clarify one thing. If I had to pick one guy in the 10 to 15 range at lightweight right now to dethrone a guy like Dustin Poirier, it's Benoit Saint Denis. I don't want to make it sound like we're discounting him or anything like that. That is
No.
a dangerous, dangerous fighter out of France. That guy has power in both hands, is not afraid to take a shot, is excellent on the ground as well. I think he can go toe to toe with Dustin Poirier anywhere this fight goes. I just think that again, when the bullets are flying, I cannot peg against Dustin Poirier, and I think there's going to be a lot of bullets flying in this fight. So it's
Yeah,
just hard to go against him, man.
you're going straight up Dustin Poirier as well, plus
Of
170, plus
course.
150, wherever we get him at. That's some good money. I don't know if we. Oh, I was going to say I don't know if we'll get Dustin Poirier at as good a price, but he could get knocked out here and be a bigger price earlier on. And I'm the same as you, man, with Benoit Saint Denis. I mean, we talk about opinion and what we have for our picks and what we're putting here. Like where our normal general picks might be different from what we put down here. Sometimes you got to bet where the value is, and the value here is with Dustin Poirier, and what's going to be a really close fight. Well, it is going to be a firefight. I mean, if Dustin Poirier does not get knocked out in his last fight against Justin Gaethje, well, I guarantee he's probably coming in here as the favorite. So it's all about what has he left, because if he has even a smidgen of what he had in the past here, and he's not completely shot, I think he gets the job done here. Plus 170, great damn price. Both of us we're aligning up on the first two bets, both on O'Malley, both on Dustin Poirier. We move to the third fight on the main card, and it's another cracker. This card is the gift that keeps on giving. We have MVP Michael Venom Page versus Kevin Holland, and we do slightly differ on this one, but I'm going to give you the floor. Give me your explanation. What are you thinking for this fight? Where is your money at?
Man, well, first of all, how lucky are we that MVP is finally in the UFC? This is one that I
Love it.
think we've all been waiting for since really ever since he burst on the scene. We started thinking, oh, I wish he could fight this guy in the UFC, and Wonder Boy would be so fun, and all these other guys at welterweight. Now we finally get to see it. My only fear, Ian O'Neill, is that it's just a little bit too late. And I think MVP is kind of a guy who relies a lot on his speed and athleticism. He's up there in age now. He's towards the end of his career. And typically with guys like that, the guys that rely more on their speed and athleticism and things like that, it sort of starts to fall off the wagon a little bit quicker than you'd expect once they get past 35. I think MVP, if he had come over even 2 years before this, he would be the favorite, and I would be more comfortable picking him there. But given the fact that, he's had a lot of stretches of inactivity as well at this part of his career, I can't pick him here. I can't. And I know that Kevin Holland is a guy who, sometimes beats himself in there, who sometimes, doesn't fight the right fight. I think he's learned those lessons. I think he's matured a lot, and you could see that in the Michael Chiesa performance.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go with Kevin Holland money line here. And
Yeah,
it's priced at around minus 130 as well. So I think it's pretty good value.
Yeah, one for sure. And like I can't argue all that much with that assessment. I still think that, Michael Venom Page still has enough at this stage of his career to get past Kevin Holland, in my opinion. Inactivity is definitely something that's up there. It'll be almost a year to the day. It'll be 367 days if you include the leap year this year since Michael Venom Page has last stepped foot inside of the Bellator cage, and he took out Yamaguchi. Whilst his speed and athleticism might be dwindling, definitely the impact of his strikes are not, because he absolutely broke Yamaguchi's kneecap into smithereens in that last fight. So my biggest problem with Kevin Holland, and to kind of echo your sentiments on Benoit Saint Denis, I was championing Benoit Saint Denis coming into the UFC. I once wrote in a preview for SevereMMA, I thought Kevin Holland would have enough to go on and put on a run for a title and maybe challenge for a title. I mean, that's so up and down with Kevin Holland. And I think the up and downness with Kevin Holland is more so down to his mentality. And I said it on the preview show, and I'll say it again. I think Kevin Holland would prefer to lose entertainingly than win boringly. And I think that might be to his detriment in this fight. I think Michael Venom Page is so unique, so elusive on the feet with and when he gets his shots off, especially his kicks, he does some serious damage. I think the smart move here for Kevin Holland is trying to close the distance and trying to take this fight down. But will he have the mental capacity to do that? Will he have, the want to go and try and outpoint MVP on the feet? He might have the capabilities of doing that too. I think we just have hit a point in MVP where we're teetering on the brink of him being, a little bit past it, but I still think he has enough to get past Kevin Holland, and a plus 110 for MVP here. I think that's a great price. I mean, I'm surprised that this fight isn't more of a pick'em, like maybe a minus 105, minus 105 pick'em. I can understand, I think the bookmakers will have somewhat of an opinion at what you do, is that maybe he doesn't have that level of capability MVP anymore, and they're trying to tempt us in with the plus 110. Well done. You've tempted me in. Plus 110 for MVP all day. I think he gets the job done. I think if you want to go even further than that, I feel like he's going to knock him out as well. You can get him. You can't. Oh, there's no. Oh, yeah. You can get MVP at a knockout at plus 500. Jesus, that's even after surprised me there. I hadn't checked that. But safe betting's MVP via this to win, just straight up, whether decision, submission, or knockout, plus 110 for MVP. We're a little bit different on that. So Theo has Kevin Holland minus 138, Ian O'Neill plus 110 for MVP. Let's do it. Next one on the agenda is also on the main card for you, Theo. Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena. I know you got some sprinkle on this.
I do, and I love this matchup. I think everyone who's watched JDM kind of rise through the ranks of welterweight at this point is sort of on the same page when we say we love watching this guy fight. Exciting boxing combinations, a guy who was always willing to come forward, has power in both hands, a fantastic fight style that I love to watch. But the thing is, he's going up against Gilbert Burns here. And Gilbert Burns is easily the biggest step up in talent that he's faced thus far in his career. JDM's also coming off of two very close fights to guys that I think Gilbert Burns would have no problem with. And not only that, but Gilbert Burns is able to take you down and is willing to keep you there. And he has the threat of submissions there that I don't know if JDM will be able to handle. I remember on the Contender Series, JDM got caught in like a very deep mounted triangle. Gilbert Burns loves that submission. I see a lot of value here on Gilbert Burns to just submit him. But to play it safe, if we're going on my official card here, I didn't want to get too sexy with it. I think Gilbert Burns can win this fight a lot of ways, and I think he can win it standing, to be honest with you. I think if you go toe-to-toe with Khamzat Chimaev and, take the second round when he's not fully gassed yet, that proves a lot to people. He can take power from anybody. He can take JDM shots, I believe, as well. He's going to be a lot bigger than him, too.
Yeah.
It's just really hard for me not to pick Gilbert Burns here. So I'm going with him just straight up to win the fight money line, and I got it locked in at plus 130 right now.
I love it. Like, I think that's the safe bet here. We talk about Gilbert Burns and his submission game inside the UFC. I'm just checking Tapology here. In 15 fights, there's 5 submission wins for him. His last submission win was an arm triangle choke over Neil Magny 2 fights ago. Before that, his last submission was way back outside. It was a rear naked choke over Mike Davis in round 2. But I think you're right in what you're saying. I think whilst I think Gilbert Burns will be kind of able to compete with Jack Della Maddalena on the feet, I think the safest route to victory for him is trying to close the distance and take the fight down. Similar enough to what we've seen in that Neil Magny fight. The Belal Muhammad loss, I think he was very badly injured going into that fight, so I'm not going to take too much credence away from that. I think for that reason, we're getting him at plus prices, and I think that's a very smart bet for you, plus 130. The only reason I didn't pick that is because I was already after picking a lot of plus bets, and the laws of averages on my card will tell you that, all the plus bets won't generally turn up, but we're keeping that plus. We're keeping the old dog alive on this one. I have no action on this card, but I do have some action on the main card opener, and I know that you do as well, Theo. It's actually the last of your bets. I do have one on the undercard. Let's talk about Peter Yan versus Song Yadong. Very good fight to kick us off on the main card in the 135-pound division. Peter Yan, looking for a little bit of redemption here, Theo, on a 3-fight losing streak. Song Yadong, coming up the rankings, flirted with the top 5 when he took on Corey Sandhagen, didn't get the job done that night. But, I'm very interested to see how he handles the Peter Yan in this fight, and I'm very curious to hear what you have going on for this one as well.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it just feels like it's the curious case of Petr Yan continues in this one. Like, he's a guy who's on a three-fight losing streak, but people still talk about him like he's one of the most dangerous guys in the division. And I think that's fair. If you look at the losses, he lost a very close fight to Aljamain Sterling in Jacksonville that a lot of people thought that he had won. He lost again a razor close decision to Sean O'Malley that a lot of people thought he had won as well. And he lost a fight to Merab Dvalishvili that no one thought he won. But Merab is just a guy whose style is so hard to deal with that I don't think people thought that Petr Yan looked that bad in that fight. If you lose to Sterling, O'Malley, and Dvalishvili back to back, who
Hmm.
else in the bantamweight division is not going to have those same results? I think you'd be very hard pressed to name anybody who could beat all three of those guys. Um, Regardless, I don't think the sentiment um, on Petr Yan has really changed that much in the eyes of the fans because I still see a lot of people picking him over Song Yadong here, despite the three-fight losing streak and despite the momentum that Song Yadong has here. And if he's this close in odds, if it's minus 120, I feel like a bit of a fool for falling into this trap again because I feel like they want me to take this bet so bad. I think the bookies really wanted me to do this and they got their wish because I am doing it. I'm taking Petr Yan money line. It's minus 120. I don't feel great about this just because in a 3-round fight, I don't like Petr Yan's style of downloading data for the first third of the fight and then trying to play catch up from there, especially against a guy who's as seasoned of a striker as Song Yadong is.
Yeah.
Maybe he switches it up for this one. Maybe he comes out being a bit more reckless and desperate because he is on a 3-fight losing streak. But regardless, I'm comfortable with him wherever this fight goes. I think he's a much better grappler, and I think that on the feet, he's going to be able to dictate time and space.
Yeah, 100%. I struggled with this fight as well, and I struggled with who I think is going to win. My overall pick is Song Yadong to win a decision. That will be my official pick on SevereMMA.com. Head over and check all of our picks out over on the website right now. They should be up as you're listening to this. But I couldn't decide between either one of these. If I was to go with that as plus 100 for Song Yadong, I wasn't confident, and I wanted to kind of keep my bets a little bit different to yours, and also not add a bet that I had on the parlay as well. For that reason, and I couldn't split between these guys. So instead, I just went for this fight to go the distance because I do think it's going to go the distance. I think Petr Yan is a type of fighter that likes to go the distance. I would be more worried about Song Yadong's power and here and his ability to stop a fight with his power, but I think that he's going to have tons of respect for a fighter like Petr Yan. Plus, Petr Yan does take a shot quite well and can be quite elusive. But I think it's going to be the exchanges and who lands the more impactfully in this fight that could win it. And Song Yadong lands the more impactful strikes, in my opinion. So that's why I would have went for him for a decision. But this fight is going to go the distance. It's minus 235. I've went for Petr Yan, Song Yadong to go the distance. That's it. Straight up minus 235. Theo went straight up Petr Yan minus 120. I mean, if you fancy Song Yadong, I think it's going to be a close fight as well. It's I wouldn't totally count out Petr Yan as well. I just put it down to that small little aspect on how he fights his fight, and I think judges are leaning on more impactful strikes. And I think in the exchanges, Song Yadong is going to probably get them off. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Petr Yan get his hand raised at the end of this as well. I will move on to the final bet that I have on my card, and it is an undercard fight, and a pretty good one at that as well, between Pedro Munoz and Kyler Phillips. And I think this is a classic case of what we're seeing on this card into terms of the old dog defending his ranking with the new young and up and coming talent. I was very high on Kyler Phillips. He's on a good run right now. He's 11-2 in his career, but I mean, we've seen this before. We've seen this time and time again, haven't we, Theo? With Pedro Munoz, the guy is not easy to get out of there. He has a style that's very difficult to beat. He lands hard. He has good takedown defense. He has good scrambles. His time possibly will come, but I don't think it's going to come in this fight. What do you think about this fight before I give my bet?
Yeah, he definitely is on the back nine of his career, and how much time he has left is up for debate. But regardless, I don't think it is right now. I actually love the way that you went in the direction with this fight. I think a really underrated part of his game that people aren't giving enough credit to is how sound defensively Pedro Munoz
Mm,
is. I don't know what his numbers are, but it just feels like in the bantamweight division, just from the eye test, he is excellent at defending and checking kicks. He's excellent at moving out of range. I don't remember him ever getting tagged or really wailed on that much. Maybe only a couple times in his career, and he's had a long one here. Um, he's had a lot more experience than Kyler Phillips. He's fought really, really tough guys. Hasn't always come out on top of them, but I think that kind of, those lessons that you learn in those fights are invaluable. And it's something that he has as a resource that Kyler Phillips just doesn't have yet.
yeah.
Not to say he won't ever get there, but I really feel like at this point, when you're on a massive card like this and there's a lot of eyeballs, the guys who are a bit more green in the game might have more flurries than a guy who's been around for too long. And Kyler Phillips isn't necessarily like this super young guy who's fresh in the game. He just hasn't been around. He hasn't been around as long as Pedro Munoz has. Give me the guy with the experience. If I had to make a pick on this one, I probably would just go Pedro Munoz straight up.
Pedro Munoz straight up, my man, is my bet. And he's at a serious price. Plus 187 here. That's I honestly, of all of the bets that I have on this card, I honestly think that this is the one I'm most confident in. Now, Phillips is a tough cookie. He's not going to be an easy out. But Pedro Munoz, like I said, is just a difficult puzzle to figure out. He last fought and lost the unanimous decision to Chito Vera, who's fighting in the main event. 2 fights before that, he drew a Sean O'Malley very close. Arguably could have won the first round against Sean O'Malley to that no contest after the eye poke. So Pedro Munoz, man, at 20-8, he's still legit. He's still going to be fighting for that ranking. He's going to be fighting for top 10 status, I would reckon. Plus 187 is damn too good for me to turn down, and that would be the last bet that I have on the card singularly. But that brings us, Theo, that brings us to the parlay, my friend. Let's talk about the team parlay right away. Let's bring it up on the screen here. We have it. Is this the parlay? There we go. That's the one. I'll go first. We have some familiar bets here that we've seen from Theo's card, some unfamiliar bets. Fights that we have not talked about already. Michel Pereira versus Michael Olejenchuk. Minus 150 for Michel Pereira in this fight for me. I think that he's going to be more powerful, more dynamic, more elusive on the feet, and he's going to win. Maybe by knockout, maybe by decision. I just think he's the much better fighter. I didn't really want to go for a prediction here, so I just went up at, I think minus 150 is a damn good price at Michel Pereira to take that money line there. Also went for a straight up money line on Curtis Blades, minus 110 against Jailton Almeida. That's a pick 'em fight. Jailton Almeida is minus 110 as well. I thought we saw a couple of chinks in the armor for Jailton Almeida, and I just think that Curtis Blades is a horrible stylistic matchup for him at this stage of his career. I think, Jailton might be able to kind of have some success, maybe taking him down, but will he be able to continue it and finish it throughout 3 rounds? I think Curtis Blades is going to get on top eventually, and I feel, we could see a late finish from Curtis Blades, if not a decision win. What's your thoughts on both of those fights real quickly, Theo, before we move into your section?
I mean, any opportunity you give me to ride with Michel Pereira, I'm taking. That absolute wild man is a guy that I want to root for so badly. When it comes to actually, putting it on the line and sort of betting on him, I think that is a very caution worthy thing to do.
Yeah.
Just because he is so reckless and really anything can happen in that cage. But I do fancy him in this matchup, so I am a fan of the pick. On to Curtis Blades. I actually disagreed on this one, but for the sake of the team, I'm willing to keep going with this. I'm willing to ride here with you. I'm in the trust tree with Ian O'Neill. I'll ride with this guy into the fire any day of the week. So if you look at the matchup with Jailton Almeida and Curtis Blades, I think that really the story of this one is just momentum. Curtis Blades is a guy who, got knocked out ferociously by Sergey Pavlovich, and then a few fights before that, Derek Lewis as well. So at heavyweight, that can happen to anybody. But when it starts to happen multiple times, you have to start to wonder how durable is this guy? And he hasn't fought since April of last year. So it'll be almost a year to the day for his inactivity there, which I don't think matters as much for heavyweights
Well,
in
a
particular.
counter argument to that, and very valid points that you made with the taking the time off would be probably a wise move after getting knocked
Right.
out twice. And another minor counter argument to that is I don't think I definitely am with you. If it was anybody else other than Jailton Almeida, I'm not confident enough that Jailton Almeida is confident in his abilities on the feet
Oh,
here.
yeah.
And with Curtis Blades, I think with Pavlovich and with Derek Lewis, the guy thought he was a kickboxer, and you're not. You're a wrestle boxer. You know, you open up your striking with your wrestling, and I think that's what he needs to do here. He'll probably fight safe, but definitely a good assessment.
Yeah.
Pereira, Curtis Blades, and what's your final thoughts on that?
And I don't mind the pick, to be honest with you. I just slightly disagree with it because the only reason is because it's 3 rounds. I
Yeah.
don't think Jailton Almeida really has a style that can beat the absolute top guys at 5 rounds. He fought Derek Lewis in that 5-rounder, which was listless to steal that MMA reporter's quote on Ian Gary from last month. But it just wasn't too much action. I wasn't impressed with him, and I thought looking at him like, man, that's a guy who just doesn't have the 5-round experience, and I don't know if his style really is going to help him at the top level against those guys. If this was a main event at the Apex, I would feel so much better about picking Curtis Blades. But 3 rounds, I think, is Almeida's game. I think, he's kind of got a chip on his shoulder. He's going to have something to prove in this one. I think he's going to feel a lot more confident and more safe going against Curtis Blades than facing a guy like Derek Lewis who, has that nuclear option and can put you out with any shot at any time. So that's only the only reason why I would go the other way. But again, this fight is a true pick'em. I think the price of -110 is perfect on it, and I don't hate it. So for the sake of the team, Ian, I'm willing to ride with you.
Well, I appreciate your support and your love, and we'll win together or we'll lose together, Theo. To top off this parlay bet, we have gone and we've talked about these fights already. Dustin Poirier money line at +150, Sugar Sean O'Malley money line at -180, -150 Behia, -110 Blades, +150 Poirier, -280 O'Malley gives us a grand total of +980 for the parlay. So that is damn good value on that parlay there. We'll be absolutely balling if we get that up on Saturday night. And I'm actually going to put a few quid on that too, just so we can ride or die together. Before we wrap up, Theo, let's get a quick run through of the cards. I'll bring my card up first, just on the main card. Sugar Sean O'Malley, -280. The money line there, straight up. Dustin Poirier money line, +150. MVP money line, +110. Pedro Munoz, +187. And Song Yadong and Peter Yan to go the distance, -235. Lots of pluses there. I don't really, when you see those pluses, like I said, the laws of averages suggest that they're not all going to come up. I've been 2 and 3 in my last 2 cards, so let's try and I want to get 3 bets up on this card here if we can. Of course, the parlay is the big one that we want, but that's my card there. You can check it out. I read it out. You'll see it on the YouTube channel too if you're listening along here on Patreon. Towards the end, that's my card. Let's bring up your card, Theo. Take us through your card real quickly before we wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, coming off a 5-0 performance, I am hot as a pistol right now, Ian O'Neill, and I feel great about this board. And that usually is a horrible sign. When I feel great about these picks, that's usually a sign that things are going to go downhill fast. But if it's going downhill fast, at least we're in on 2 of these together here with Sean O'Malley and Dustin Poirier on the money line. We are butting heads on Holland versus MVP. That's fine. I think either way, it's going to be an entertaining fight. So no matter who wins there, I'll be happy. Gilbert Burns, give me the bigger, allegedly stronger, tougher guy who has way more experience and has the advantage on the ground. And then Piotr Young. Again, if you're bringing up the law of averages with your card and picking plus or minus fights, if we're thinking about the law of averages with Piotr Young's career, the dam has to break at some point. This guy is not at the level of someone who should be on a 3-fight losing streak. If the dam is going to break, it's breaking on Saturday night. So I got to ride with Peter Yan.
Let's do it. Let's go, champ. And the unfortunate thing for you, Theo, is that having gone 5-0 and the last time, you can't get much better than that. That's the unfortunate thing. There's room for improvement for me, of course. But look, that's a good problem for you to have, sir. And it's a good problem for us to have heading in to UFC 299. It's a monster card. We got some monster bets on. Take a look at our social media right before the card. We will be posting our cards. We'll keep everybody updated with how our bets are going. Of course, we shout from the rooftops when we win. We might not share anything if we lose, but if that parlay comes off, we'll be sipping Chardonnay and we will be eating what's a fancy food to eat? What's the fish egg?
Caviar.
Caviar, Chardonnay and
Responsibly.
caviar. Yeah. And as always, as before we leave it, please bet responsibly. Like I said, this is only fun. We will have some details in the chat. If things are getting a little bit too serious in your life, if the fun stops, that's what they say. Stop it up. We're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to put some small bets on here. We're having a bit of crack. You should do the same. Don't let things get too serious. That was it for the UFC 299 betting show. At Theo Lander is where you'll catch that man on social media, and I definitely would say it's worth your while doing so. At O'Neill MMA is where you'll catch me. We'll be back for the big one, UFC 300. We'll be there to break down our bets and see how we do on this event as well. Take care. We'll talk to you very, very soon. Enjoy the fights this weekend.